is, should the Senate show some backbone and delay any nomination for President Obama to the point where he is out of office and that nomination will then get withdrawn? Or do they work with him and fulfill, I guess, what Democrats are saying now, not then, but now, as their constitutional duty to advise and consent pursuant to the Constitution? But it's a little different than that because, depending on which side you are in the argument, we flip-flop here as to whether a nominee should be even put up by a president in an election year. And as Russ has shown me, then Senator Obama had an opinion about this that is probably different than President Obama. So let's take a listen to what then Senator Obama had to say.
Well, of the Senate. As we all know, there's been a lot of discussion in the country about how the Senate should approach this confirmation process. There are some who believe that the president, having won the election, should have complete authority to appoint his nominee, and the Senate should only examine whether or not the justice is intellectually capable and an all-around good guy. That once you get beyond intellect and personal character, there should be no further questions as to whether the judge should be confirmed. I disagree with this view. I believe firmly that the Constitution calls for the Senate to advise and consent. I believe that it calls for meaningful advice and consent that includes an examination of a judge's philosophy, ideology, and record. And when I examine the philosophy, ideology, and record of Samuel Alito, I am deeply troubled.
Now that was then Senator Obama regarding the confirmation of Justice Alito. Tables turned to what we have now.
And that was President Bush more than a year out from the end of his term. More than a year out under President Bush, Senator Obama saying that he doesn't think that they should confirm any of his picks. Wow, okay. So now let's talk about another liberal lion, I guess.
Cuckoo banana lib.
I guess that's a good way to say it.
So, cuckoo banana lib.
Our own New York and hashtag New York values.
People's Republic of New York City.
Behind enemy lines. Senator Chuck Schumer. Senator Chuck Schumer. Let's hear what he had to say, Gene. We got both clips, by the way, of him contradicting himself. So let's play the first one.
And so our job is to go forward with the process, and then we'll see what happens. That's what Democrats
happen.
Well, no, I'm not sure that's true. You know, the kind of obstructionism that Mitch McConnell's talking about, he's harking back to his old days. You know, he said, well, I want regular order. But in 2010, right after the election, or right during the election, he said, my number one job is to defeat Barack Obama, without even knowing what Barack Obama was going to propose. Here, he doesn't even know who the president's going to propose, and he says, no, we're not having hearings, we're not going to go forward, to leave the Supreme Court vacant for 300 days in a divided time. This kind of obstructionism isn't going to last. And, you know, we Democrats didn't do this when we voted 97-0 for Justice Kennedy in the last year of Reagan's term.
After voting down Justice Bork and Justice...
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm outraged. I want to just, throw this computer right through the wall. We Democrats didn't do this. He says. And whoever that was interviewing him said, yeah, well, what about Justice Bork? Yes, you voted for Kennedy, who, by the way, Kennedy is the liberal justice. He's that swing vote on the court that sometimes goes to the liberals.
The most powerful judge in the world. Probably.
Yes, the most powerful person in the country, arguably. Because he decides what's constitutional and what's not. I mean, it's unreal. So for Chuck Schumer, and this is what he's saying now. That to leave the Supreme Court vacancy for 300 days is a travesty, right? That's what he's saying now. Well, let's play what Chuck Schumer, Senator Chuck Schumer, that piece of trash, said. Let's play what he said back in the days when George Bush was still president.
And the tables were turned.
The Supreme Court is dangerously out of balance. We cannot afford to see Justice Stevens replaced by another Roberts or Justice Ginsburg by another Alito. Given the track record of this president and the experience of obfuscation at hearings, with respect to the Supreme Court at least, I will recommend to my colleagues that we should not confirm any Bush nominee to the Supreme Court except in extraordinary circumstances. They must prove They must prove by actions, not words, that they are in the mainstream, rather than we have to prove that they are not.
Are you kidding me? Come on!
I think that we've just proven that they are not in the mainstream.
Politics is the art of the possible, isn't it? That's ridiculous.
So that is your President Obama and
Schumer.
Schumer.
On us? Come on.
President Obama and Chuck Schumer are icons of the left. The Democratic Party are a bunch of hypocrites. Look at what they do and say. They prey on the dumb, uninformed Americans. And unfortunately, there's a lot of us out there who don't pay attention to what the hell is going on. They don't do any research, and they watch the news, and they live in the now, and they listen to Kanye West and these other idiots on TV.
With the exception of the last thing, we call those voters for Trump. No, just kidding.
Wow.
Just kidding. No, but there was something to be said about Trump playing on low information voters as well. Just kidding, folks. Just kidding.
I don't know. Gene just threw me off my rhythm.
Within every
More
joke, there's a
about
little bit
that
of
later.
truth. I think I'm actually just making the segue to the debate that Russ and Yak are going to have after the interview with Niger Innis. That's all I'm doing. I'm stirring the pot, as it were.
By the way, thank God Gene said the name, because I'm reading in here and I almost said it wrong.
Whoa, stop that.
I'm only kidding. I know Niger Innis.
By the way, Russ should know that in the edited version of this interview does not have the mistake that I did for Niger Innis' name. I called him Nigel.
Wow.
Okay, so that was the problem there.
That's better than
But
what I
you'll
was
hear
doing.
that right after the break. Folks, we're a little bit before halftime here behind Enemy Lines. I'm Gene, he's Russ. That's the gang out there, especially in the chat room. And while you're listening to the show, check us out on our website, www.behindenemylinesradio.us. Check us out on the Facebooks and the Twitters at BEL_radio. And if you miss any part of this live show here on Spreaker, you can listen to us on any of our rebroadcast outlets, including WNJC 1360 AM, Philadelphia's Renaissance Station, Rebooting Liberty Radio Network, Red State Talk Radio, High Plains Talk Radio and Sackheads Media, and K98 Talk. And if you miss any of those, you can catch us on demand on Spreaker, iTunes, Player FM, Podbay, TuneIn, Stitcher, and iHeartRadio, and soon also on Google Play. Oh, stop it. I'm trying to get the plugs out of the way. Good
job, Gene. Good job.
When we come back after this commercial break, we're going to have our interview with Niger Innis. Thank God I said it right. And after that, the great debate between Russ and Yak. Gene and Russ behind Enemy Lines will be back right after these reports.
I'm Vito.
And I'm Vito, and we're from WNJC's The Vito and Vito Show.
Every Friday at 1 p.m., you can hear Vito and Vito bring you the perspectives of two college-age millennial conservatives who are committed to defending the principles of free markets, liberty, freedom, and individualism from Brooklyn, New York.
Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Vito and Vito Show, and check out our blog posts and articles at VitoandVito.com.
Vito and Vito Show every Friday, 1 p.m. on WNJC 1360 AM, Philadelphia's Renaissance Station. In Brooklyn,
it's nothing but the truth.
There's a movement in healthcare today. It's a movement of people that's ready to stand up and take charge of their healthcare. It's people like you and me who are tired of paying too much for healthcare and getting too little. People who are standing up for their values and letting their conscience make decisions based on timeless principles. It's a movement that's sweeping the nation, and you need to be a part of it. Liberty Health Share is leading the movement of people who are looking for an alternative to traditional health insurance. Liberty Health Share is a healthcare sharing organization of people who are sharing the cost of healthcare in an easy and efficient way. Choose your own doctor, your own hospital, and live out your values in healthcare. Join the movement. Together, we're changing healthcare for good. Go to www.joinlhs.com or call 800-722-8041.
Who might you save?
Your mother, your father, your husband, uncle, aunt, son.
Learn FAST, F-A-S-T, the sudden signs of a stroke, and you could save.
Your friend, teacher, boss.
F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time to call 911. F-A-S-T. That's F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time to call 911. The sooner they get to the hospital, the sooner they'll get treatment. And that can make a remarkable difference in the recovery of
your neighbor, the waiter, grandmother, grandfather.
So learn FAST, the sudden signs of a stroke, then pass it on, because you never know who might save you.
your wife, your colleague.
Spot a stroke fast. Visit strokeassociation.org. Brought to you by the American Stroke Association and the Ad Council.
Behind Enemy Lines. Back on the air. Gene Baradelli back behind enemy lines and on the phone with me right now. It is a pleasure to finally get on the show. A man I've been trying to chase down for about 2 years now. About 2 CPACs ago, we were hanging out at Louis Gomer's party. Niger, Innis, how you doing, pal?
I'm doing great.
All right, so it sounds like you're out and about. You're pretty much everywhere. I see you on Twitter all the time, on Facebook all the time. It's an exciting time right now, election 2016. The field is whittling down. What are your thoughts right now as we stand currently right before the South Kakalaki primary?
South Kakalaki, that's my favorite word, Kakalaki. I think, first of all, my supporters, my Tea Party constituency, they don't like seeing mommy and daddy fight. And they're a little disappointed by Donald Trump and Ted Cruz going at war with one another. But, look, we got to grow up. That's the way. This is a fight for the presidency of the United States, the most powerful position in the history of mankind. So it's not tiddlywinks. Having said that, though, and in spite of the, I guess the heartburn that the little civil war between Trump and Cruz is causing, my supporters and my Tea Party brothers and sisters all across the country, I have to say that actually on both sides of the aisle, on the Republican aisle and the Democrat aisle, this is the most exciting presidential race that we have had in our lifetime, I think, bar none. Even the historic election of 2008 on both tickets with Barack Obama and Sarah Palin and the historic nature of that election. This election by far is the most exciting presidential election in my adult lifetime.
I would tend to agree with that, and I think it's for the first time in my adult lifetime, we're looking at a Republican field that, from top to bottom right now, probably the most conservative field that has ever been, canvassed, or the most conservative field that's ever been put forth in a very, very long time. Probably longer than in my lifetime. That's got to be a step in the right direction if you're a Tea Party activist like yourself, right?
It is a great step in the right direction. Even, so-called establishment candidates like Jeb Bush and Kasich and Christie before he dropped out of the race were saying the right things. I mean, the playbook has been written by the Tea Party. At least the talking points of what Republicans are supposed to say have been written essentially by the Tea Party since 2009 and 2000, and of course the great historic 2010 sweep. Even in the situation where you have folks that are calling Marco Rubio an establishment candidate, that's ironic as heck, considering that his conservative rating is pretty darn good. It's not as good as Ted Cruz's is, but it's pretty darn good. And the fact is anybody will remember, Marco Rubio was born out of the Tea Party revolution. So I think the movement is going in the right direction. It's influencing the party the right way. What I'm a little uncomfortable about and a little nervous about, though, is the degree of the chagrin that the establishment has, the Republican establishment tends to have, or, I don't want to generalize, some very powerful figures within the Republican establishment have, the consternation that they have to the two most popular grassroots, most popular candidates with the grassroots, and that being Donald Trump and Ted Cruz. That disturbs me simply because you don't want a situation where one or two things happens. Either A, somehow, some way, by hook or by crook, and the operative word being crook, the establishment defeats Donald Trump and Ted Cruz and flips in somebody that does not reflect the will of the grassroots of the Republican Party, because under those circumstances, I think you can write a ticket for Hillary Clinton to being the next president. And then scenario B, which would be almost as bad, is that Donald Trump or Ted Cruz do take this nomination.